everybody, welcome to the 87th edition of Drive Thru Review. Today I'm going to talk about Keltis, the card game. So this is a game for 2 to 4 players by Dr. Rainer Knizia. So if you've heard of Lost Cities, most people have. It's a 2-player card game. If you haven't heard of it, go look it up. It's pretty well known. So they made Lost Cities, and then they made Lost Cities the board game. And then they turned that board game into Keltis the board game. And now they've gone back to the card game. So this is Keltis the card game. And they're actually, at the time of this video, in the process of making or releasing Keltis the dice game. So, if you know Lost Cities, this is Lost Cities for 2 to 4 players. I'm going to show you how it works and come back and tell you what I think. Okay, so in the box you get your rules here, which are in German, unfortunately. I should say it's not available in English, but you can find this game from different vendors on Board Game Geek. And there are some good, nice files here, so you can get the English rules, fold those up, put them in there, and then you can get these little player aids or scoring aids for each of the 4 players. Now, in addition, you get a giant stack of these cards here, and these are the main cards you're going to be playing with. And then you're going to get 1 through 9 of these little wishing stones here. So you're going to start the game, you're going to deal each player 8 of these cards. If you're playing with 2 players, you're going to randomly remove 30 out of this deck. Otherwise, you're just going to deal everybody 8 cards. So if you're familiar with Lost Cities, this is going to seem really similar. Once you've got 8 cards in your hand, you can either play a card for yourself or discard a card. And then you're going to draw cards back up to your hand. So the way that it's different than Lost Cities is you can see there's some different suits here, and there's 0 through 10. And you've also got these end caps, which are sort of similar to the asterisks in Lost Cities, but not really, and I'll explain them in a second. So what's different than Lost Cities, though, is you can actually go up or down. Let me explain that. So if I play a card, I'm going to start maybe this color, this pink color here. Now from here, I've got a 3. At this point, I can either go up or down from 3. I don't have to go exactly sequentially, so I could play this 5 on the 3, let's say, or I could play this 4. The 4 would be better. So now I'm forced to go in an ascending order. So if I got a 2 or a 1 or something, you can't go in and stick that in underneath. Now you're locked into going up in order. Whereas if I just started, let's say, with this 5, then I would play a 4, now I'm going down, which wouldn't be very smart because you're halfway through all the numbers. It's not going to work well. So you can go up or down. And then, after a while, you can play an end cap. Either, it doesn't matter if you go up or down. You can just play that as sort of the last card. And then you can play another end cap if you get on top of that end cap. The other thing you can do is you can actually play a card that matches. So I could do 2 4s in a row, like so. So if you start a pile for a color, then that's the pile you're going to use for that color. You don't have to start a pile for all the 5 colors. So I've got blue in my hand, maybe I start another pile there, and then I don't have any more piles for any more colors. Now if you don't start a pile for a color, you're not going to get penalized. At the end of the game, similar to Lost Cities, you're going to compare all the cards that you have, but the scoring is slightly simpler actually, but pretty much the same. So if we look at this left-hand side here of the player aid, if you had a pile of just 1 card, you're actually going to get -4 points. But if it was 2 cards big, it'd be -3, so that would be -3. However, if you build a big long string of these, you're going to get 10 points. If you got 9 or more, you get 10 points for that pile. And again, if you don't start a pile for a color, it's just basically worth 0 points. Now there's a 6th type of card in this deck, and these are these white sort of wild ones here. So you can see this is a 4. Now you can do 2 things with these wild ones here. You can play them on top of any matching number in any of the other existing stacks. So I could play this 4 on top of any other 4. You can't use it to change your run up or down, but you can play it only on exactly on the same number. And that'll basically just, give you an extra card in that stack to score. The other thing you can do is you can actually play a stack of wilds like so. And these have to be ascending or descending as well. But these are going to be not going to be checked against the player aid here. If you play them in their own pile for the scoring cards, it's basically just 1 point per card in that pile. Now the other thing you can do instead of playing a card in front of you is you can discard a card to a discard pile. And basically what the players will end up doing is forming a discard pile for each color. So if you discard, let's say this pink, and then somebody else comes along and discards a pink, then you have to place it on top of the pre-existing pink discard pile. Now after you play a card or discard a card, then you can draw a card. You can either draw a card off the top of the deck here, or off the face-up top of one of these discard piles like so. And you can also have a discard pile for the wilds. So if you wanted to discard a wild for some reason, you can do that. And then probably the next player will take it. So that's pretty much the game. You're going to play a card or discard a card and then draw a card. But there's a special exception where you can discard 2 cards at once. And to be able to discard 2 cards at once, you're going to have to discard 2 cards of the same number. So if I had these 2 4s, I could discard both of these 4. And they don't have to be the same color. They could just have to be the same number in this case. So I discard 2 4s. And I can do that if there's a wishing stone that matches the 4. So I'll do that and grab this 4 wishing stone and put that in a little wishing stone stack. And so now that 4 is gone. So nobody can discard 2 4s anymore. There's no 4 to take, you can't discard 2 4s. When you do that, then you're going to draw 2 cards, back up to your hand size of 8, and then that's the end of your turn. And the reason you're going to discard these wishing stones is you have to try to get these wishing stones if you don't want to get penalized. So if at the end of the game you have no wishing stones in front of you, you get -4. But if you have 5 different wishing stones, then you'll get 10 points. So you basically just add up everybody's score. Whoever has the most points wins. You could go from game to game and play to a certain number of points if you want. Okay, so that's Keltis, the card game. So you can see if you're a Lost Cities fan, which there's a lot of them out there, I'm one of them, you can see this is pretty much Lost Cities. Now, I haven't played this with 2. You can play it with 2. I played it with 3 and 4. I would personally say if you're going to play 2-player, just play Lost Cities. It does have a cool thing with those stones, getting those stones out, because everybody's going to want to try to get those stones early on, especially, so you can kind of hedge your bets, against those negative points. But the cool thing about that is it seeds the discard pile with, some doubles. If you're playing a 4-player game, everybody's trying to grab those stones. Well, then you've got a nice discard pile of stuff that you can take and pick and choose what you want to build your runs for later in the game. The thing that I really like that part of it. There's a nice tension there. So the thing though that it doesn't do, that kind of misses from Lost Cities, is if you play a card for yourself, let's say, or even discard a card, as that draw deck gets down, instead of taking a card from the draw deck, if you're trying to buy yourself time to build up that long row or try to get a row out of the negative points, then instead of, you might take a card from one of the face-ups to to prevent that draw deck from running out, because once that draw deck runs out, that's the end of the game. But with a 4-player game of this, as it gets down, that element of of buying time really is not present in this game as much, or all really. So that's the kind of that's the kind of one of the cool parts about Lost Cities, is you can try to time the end of the game a little bit better. But with 4, there's no reason for me to say, okay, I'm going to pause when I know everybody else is probably just going to draw the cards anyway and it's going to be done. You can't really pause. Now you can try to pause maybe midway through the game, but by then you probably haven't built up anything worth anything. So it kind of loses that element of it, which is too bad. But this is the way it is. The game just won't do that. It's not designed for that. But the other stuff is cool, and it's kind of neat that after you play a few times to keep your eye on everybody. And then you've got 2 people kind of going for yellows or pinks, and so you got to really watch out, because you're going to help probably both of them or one or the other. You don't want to help anybody. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty dynamic, and I would say it's nice for anybody that likes Lost Cities, and you've got a couple that both like Lost Cities, and you can play this. So anyway, that's Keltis, the card game, and thanks.